gather around and dim the lights, for what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. In the quiet stillness of the night, when shadows grow long and the wind whispers secrets through the trees, the line between reality and the supernatural begins to blur. These 10 tales, drawn from the darkest corners of human imagination and whispered legends, are sure to send shivers down your spine. So, hold your breath, listen closely, and prepare to be haunted by the eerie, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying. The Shadow in the Mirror. When Lisa moved into her new apartment, she found an old, ornate mirror in the attic. It was beautiful, with intricate carvings around the frame. She decided to hang it in her bedroom. From the first night, Lisa felt uneasy. Whenever she looked into the mirror, she felt like she wasn't alone. One evening, as she was brushing her hair, she noticed a shadowy figure in the reflection, standing behind her. She spun around, but no one was there. Dismissing it as a trick of the light, she continued with her evening routine. But the shadow appeared again the next night, closer than before. Each night, the figure seemed to move closer, becoming more defined. It was a woman, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into Lisa's soul. Terrified, Lisa covered the mirror, but the haunting continued. She heard whispers, felt cold breath on her neck, and saw fleeting images in every reflective surface. Desperate, Lisa did some research and discovered that the previous tenant, a young woman, had died mysteriously in the apartment. Legend had it that her spirit was trapped in the mirror. Lisa decided to get rid of it, but as she tried to take it off the wall, it shattered into pieces. The next morning, Lisa was gone, and all that remained was a chilling message written in the dust. "I am free now." The Whispering Shadow. In a small town, there was a legend about a shadow that whispers. It was said to appear only at night, always lurking just out of sight. One night, a curious young woman named Claire decided to investigate. She waited until midnight, the time when the shadow was most active, and then she walked through the darkest part of town. Suddenly, she heard it, whispering her name. She turned, but nothing was there. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, until it was right behind her. She felt a cold breath on her neck and ran home, but the whispering followed her inside. That was the last anyone saw of Claire. Her house stands empty, but at night, if you walk past, you can still hear her name being whispered from within. The Smiling Man. Walking home late one night, John decided to take a shortcut through a less frequented part of town. The streets were empty, and the silence was almost suffocating. As he rounded a corner, he saw a man dancing in the street under the dim glow of a street lamp. The man's movements were erratic, his body contorting in unnatural ways, and he wore a wide, unsettling smile. John tried to ignore him and walked faster, but the smiling man noticed him and started following, still dancing. The smile never left his face. John felt a surge of fear and began to run. No matter how fast he went, he could hear the soft tap of the dancing man's footsteps behind him. He glanced back and saw the smiling man was closer now, his smile even wider, eyes fixed on John. Panicked, John ducked into an alley, hoping to lose him. He hid behind a dumpster, holding his breath. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, there was silence. Suddenly, the smiling man's face appeared inches from John's, his smile impossibly wide. "Why are you running?" he whispered, his voice dripping with malice. John screamed and bolted out of the alley, running until he reached his apartment and locked the door. The next morning, he found a note slipped under his door. "I'll see you again." The Phone Call. One quiet evening, Sarah was alone in her apartment when the phone rang. She answered, expecting a friend or a telemarketer, but what she heard chilled her to the bone. It was her mother's voice, trembling and urgent. "Sarah, stay away from the window," her mother warned. Sarah's mother had passed away a year ago in a tragic accident. She thought it was a cruel prank and angrily hung up. But as she walked past the window, she caught a glimpse of a dark figure lurking outside. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, and she felt a surge of dread. The phone rang again. "Sarah, listen to me. Stay away from the window," the voice pleaded. This time, she felt the fear in her mother's voice. She backed away from the window, just as the glass shattered and a masked intruder burst in. Sarah ran to her room, locking the door behind her. She dialed 911 with shaking hands and whispered for help. The operator stayed on the line, assuring her that help was on the way. The intruder pounded on the door, trying to break it down. Just as the door splintered, sirens wailed, and the intruder fled. When the police arrived, Sarah recounted the story, leaving out the part about her mother's voice. As they searched the apartment, she found her mother's old phone, which had been disconnected since her death. The last call made on it was to Sarah's number. The Black-Eyed Children. It was a cold, rainy night when Lisa heard a knock at her door. She hesitated, but eventually opened it to find two children standing there, a boy and a girl. They looked normal, except for their unnaturally black eyes. They spoke in unison, their voices flat and emotionless. "Can we use your phone?" they asked. A wave of unease washed over Lisa. "Who are you? Where are your parents?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just let us in," they insisted, stepping closer. The unease turned into fear, and Lisa instinctively slammed the door shut, locking it. The children continued to knock, their pleas growing more desperate. "We won't hurt you. We need to call our parents." Lisa backed away from the door, her heart pounding. She peeked through the window and saw the children standing perfectly still, staring at her with those black eyes. She called the police, but when they arrived, the children were gone. The police took her statement, but they couldn't find any trace of the children. That night, and for many nights after, Lisa had nightmares of those black-eyed children, their voices echoing in her mind. "Let us in. We won't hurt you." The Old Woman in the Wood. A group of friends decided to go camping in a remote forest. They set up their tents and enjoyed a day of hiking and exploring. As night fell, they gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and laughter. Suddenly, an old woman appeared out of the darkness, her eyes wild and frantic. "You must leave this place before it's too late," she warned. "The woods are cursed. Stay, and you will never leave." The friends laughed it off, thinking she was just a crazy old lady trying to scare them. They ignored her warning and continued their night of fun. But as the hours passed, strange things began to happen. They heard whispers in the wind, saw shadows moving among the trees, and felt an overwhelming sense of dread. One by one, they started to disappear. First, it was Tim, who went to fetch more firewood and never came back. Then Sarah, who went to check on him, vanished without a trace. The remaining friends huddled together, terrified and confused. By dawn, only one was left. Desperate and shaking with fear, he ran through the woods, hoping to find a way out. He stumbled upon the old woman, who simply shook her head and pointed to a clearing. There, he saw the lifeless bodies of his friends, their faces frozen in terror. He managed to escape and tell the tale, but he never forgot the old woman's warning. The woods are cursed. The Crying Boy Painting. The Johnson family found a beautiful painting of a crying boy at a local flea market. Thinking it would add a unique touch to their living room, they bought it and hung it above the fireplace. Almost immediately, strange things began to happen. First, small items went missing, only to turn up in odd places. Then, unexplained fires broke out in the house, causing minor damage but always leaving the painting untouched. The final straw came when they woke up one night to find the entire living room engulfed in flames. They barely escaped with their lives. A neighbor, hearing of their troubles, told them about the legend of the Crying Boy painting. It was said to be cursed, bringing misfortune and fire to anyone who owned it. The Johnsons, desperate to rid themselves of the curse, tried to burn the painting, but it remained unscathed. They eventually donated it to a local museum, hoping to put the curse behind them. But soon after, the museum experienced a mysterious fire and the painting disappeared. The Johnsons moved away, but they could never escape the feeling that the crying boy's curse still haunted them. The Haunted Cabin. Mark and Emily decided to rent a remote cabin in the woods for a peaceful weekend getaway. The cabin was charming and rustic, but as soon as they arrived, Emily felt an inexplicable sense of dread. Mark dismissed her fears, assuring her it was just her imagination. The first night, they heard strange noises, whispers, footsteps, and soft crying. Mark went outside to investigate but found nothing. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The second night, the noises grew louder, and they began seeing ghostly apparitions. A woman in a white dress, a child crying in the corner, and shadowy figures moving through the rooms. Terrified, they decided to leave, but the car wouldn't start. Desperation set in as the apparitions became more aggressive, knocking on doors and windows, pleading for help. They discovered an old diary hidden under a floorboard, detailing the brutal murder of a family who had once lived there. The spirits were trapped, seeking justice and peace. Mark and Emily finally managed to escape the cabin at dawn, vowing never to return. They later learned that every tenant who stayed at the cabin reported similar hauntings. The cabin remained abandoned, a ghostly reminder of the tragic past. The call from inside the house. A teenage girl named Megan was babysitting for the Thompson family one evening. After putting the children to bed, she settled down to watch TV. The phone rang and she answered, but all she heard was heavy breathing on the other end. Thinking it was a prank, she hung up and went back to her show. The phone rang again, and this time a chilling voice whispered, "Have you checked the children?" Megan's blood ran cold. She raced upstairs to check on the kids, who were sound asleep. She returned to the living room, trying to shake off her fear. The phone rang a third time. "Why haven't you checked the children?" the voice hissed. Megan hung up and called the police, her hands trembling. The operator told her to stay calm and keep the line open while they traced the call. Minutes later, the operator's voice came back, urgent and panicked. "Megan, get out of the house. The call is coming from inside the house." Megan screamed and ran for the door just as a shadowy figure emerged from the hallway. She bolted outside, where she was met by the police. They searched the house and found the intruder hiding in an upstairs closet with a knife. He was arrested, and the children were safe, but Megan never babysat again, haunted by the memory of that terrifying night. The Doppelganger. David lived a relatively normal life until the day he saw someone who looked exactly like him standing on the opposite side of the street. The resemblance was uncanny, down to the clothes he was wearing. He dismissed it as a coincidence, but over the next few weeks, he saw his double more frequently. It started to interfere with his life. Friends and family began to mention seeing him in places he hadn't been, doing things he hadn't done. His girlfriend, Claire, accused him of lying about his whereabouts, claiming she had seen him with another woman. David was at a loss, unable to explain the bizarre occurrences. One night, David woke up to find his double standing at the foot of his bed, grinning menacingly. "Who are you?" David demanded, his voice shaking. The double's grin widened, and it whispered, "I'm you." David tried to fight the double, but his hands passed through it like smoke. The double laughed, a hollow, echoing sound, and disappeared. From that moment on, David's life unraveled. He lost his job, his friends, and even Claire, who believed he had gone mad. Desperate, David sought help from a psychic, who told him that his doppelganger was a manifestation of his darkest fears and regrets, a shadow self trying to take over his life. To rid himself of the double, he had to confront and overcome his inner demons. David embarked on a journey of self-discovery and healing, but he could never shake the feeling that his double was always watching, waiting for the moment he let his guard down. Conclusion. As we bring these chilling tales to a close, remember that the world is full of mysteries that defy explanation. The ghostly whispers, the cold touch of an unseen hand, and the eerie feeling of being watched. Are they mere figments of our imagination or echoes from the other side? As you lay your head down to sleep tonight, keep in mind that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are not just stories told in the dark. Sweet dreams, if you dare.